Good evening. My name is Glenn Cockrell. Before I begin my remarks about the towers issue, I should thank the commissioners and commend them for decisions thus far in favor of citizens of Lancaster County in particular. Perhaps more important than the earlier outcome itself is the restoration of orderly governance and due process along with trust in both. We know that there was most certainly a beginning of time. In Genesis 1:9 we learn, and God said, and it was so. Well, this evening for these remarks, let us set aside the spirituality of the beginning and stipulate that it was a long time ago, that the Rappahannock River was formed also a long time ago, and that the Rappahannock has evolved during this almost immeasurably long time to be an ever richer tributary treasure. Let us fast forward from the beginning of time to 1608 with keen focus on Captain John Smith, as my very good friend Scott Bale has alluded to earlier, and his fellow explorers who came into the Rappahannock in June for the second time. One might close one's eyes just for a few seconds and imagine being in the boat with those courageous men. Imagine the natural splendor they observed, the lushness of those splendors. Imagine being immersed in the quietude from shoreline to shoreline. Now one might open one's eyes and hear Captain Smith's impression as he himself summarized it in his journal, as Scott Bale so aptly quoted. But Scott only gave the first half of the comment that I referenced. Heaven and earth never agreed better to frame a place for man's being, where it inhabited and nurtured by thoughtful, industrious people. As it has been, it now is still, but will it continue to be? Let us together fast forward again, but this time for only 300 years or so, to remarks by Theodore Roosevelt to the American citizenry about the practices of the timber and lumber barons, mostly in the western sections of our nation, whose monopolies he was determined to break, partially through his equally relentless dedication to preservation. After all, this President Roosevelt's accomplishments included, if they were not domestically led by, the transformation of both monopolies and preservation. He remarked, preservation of our nation's resources will reflect the character of our people as we go forward into an ever more challenging future. We have a clear choice, he continued. Either we will choose stewardship and preservation, or we will abrogate our solemn obligations and choose disregard and expediency. Finally, he encouraged, here is your country. Cherish these natural wonders. Cherish the natural resources. Cherish their history and romance as a sacred heritage for your children and your children's children. Do not let selfish men or greedy interests skin your country of its beauty, its riches, or its romance. Should we not be guided by one of the most accomplished and distinguished people in our nation's history, especially in particular in terms of monopolistic perspective and practice, along with stewardship and preservation? Are Mr. Roosevelt's comments not completely applicable to these issues before the commissioners regarding the Rappahannock River and the Northern Neck? Not to forget for a second the Middle Peninsula. Let us fast forward now to the last third of the 20th century and these past early years of the 21st. Would the commissioners with me consider the career's work of perhaps the foremost artist of the Chesapeake Bay and its tributary, John Barber? I have searched and searched and searched through his, through his incomparable works. For the life of me, I cannot find a painting of transmission line towers. It appears that Mr. Barber never has found a single redeeming attribute that would lead him to paint such a structure. On the other hand, he has on innumerable occasions painted and memorialized the beauty of our natural wonder, the Rappahannock River, and the majesty of its iconic structural companion, the Rappahannock Norris Bridge. Let there be no misunderstanding. It appears that Mr. Barber has been moved by what Captain Smith saw, raw natural beauty, largely unspoiled since the beginning of time, that should be enjoyed by countless people all over Virginia, even across America for generations to come. Two, it seems he agrees with Mr. Roosevelt, especially in terms of cherishing the history and romance of our sacred heritage for those in our local future generations. Would the commissioners further consider that the Rappahannock River is the soul, or at least a major element of the soul, of our region? As such, it absolutely makes the special spot special, much like Natural Bridge and Blue Ray Caverns and their special spots. Still further,
Coming back on.
Still further, would they consider that its equally iconic structural companion, the Rappahannock Norris Bridge, is a true complement with an E to the soulful role of this great tributary treasure? If the commissioners will, again setting aside religious and theological sensibilities, consider that soul refers to energy. That is, the energy of the mind, the energy of the heart, such as the source or embodiment of inspiration that engenders action and thinking and feeling. Well, such consideration begs the question, would transmission line towers ever be a true complement with an E, or would they be the first true undeniable blemish on this virtually pristine lower section of the Rappahannock since the beginning of time? Very much, most likely, they would never be the former, but would always be the latter. What would be their impact on our region's soul, our region's people, our region's way of life, our region's economy? Consider lastly the wisdom and eloquence of a son of the Northern Act, Dr. James E.C. Norris, M.D., who wrote about his father's own decline and death in his father's biography, Fight On, My Soul. Ask, as I share these thoughts and feelings, is this what we should needlessly risk by disregard for and expediency toward this special spot? Dr. Norris, the end of the journey will come. There's no dispute about that. How and in what manner the soul exits the flesh is unknown in the equation of life. The end can come with the cataclysmic swiftness of a bolt of lightning. It can come in slow, almost methodical decrements like a furtive thief creeping in the night. Or it can come in spasms of pain and agony as one moves inexorably to one's last breath. Most respectfully, I hope that the commissioners will focus on the paraphrase of several sentences. How and in what manner our region's soul will be diminished would be unknown in the equation of vibrancy and appeal or life in this region. The tower's impact might be swift decline. Their impact might be slowly methodical and furtive decline over time. But their impact would cause pain because our region's soul would be irreparably diminished. There can be no doubt about that. If I may, I most sincerely hope that the commissioners will continue to focus, as they have to date, on what is noble and right and true, on what is pure and lovely and admirable, and on what is excellent and praiseworthy. As St. Paul encourages us all in his letter to the Philippians. With this as their continuous focus, I am aspirationally confident that in the right work, with their insistence on forthright methods, they will again come to the best decision. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you for letting me speak.